These cursed towns in the United States that people mysteriously abandon will send chills down your spine. Centralia, Pennsylvania, a place where the fire still burns beneath the streets. Imagine waking up one morning to find the ground literally cracking open beneath your feet, smoke pouring from sinkholes, carbon monoxide creeping into your basement. Well, that's what happened in Centralia, Pennsylvania, a quiet coal town until 1962 when a fire accidentally ignited an underground coal seam. They thought it'd burn out in a few days, but it didn't. That fire is still burning today, over 60 years later. The roads warped, houses were swallowed by the earth. By the 1980s, people were ordered to evacuate. Today, graffiti-covered Route 61, known as Graffiti Highway, is the only clue left of a town once home to over 1,000 people. And some who return say they've heard voices in the smoke. It's definitely a creepy place to visit, but if you go, come back and let me know your experience. Dudleytown, Connecticut, the village that drives people insane. Locals call it the Village of the Damned. Now, Dudleytown, nestled in the so-called Dark Entry Forest, was once a small settlement in the 1700s, but then everything went wrong. Settlers went insane. People unalived themselves, lightning strikes, entire families just kind of going off. Now, even those who visited would suffer misfortune afterward. Rumors say the Dudley family brought a curse over from England, a punishment for betraying the monarchy. Today, the forest has completely consumed the town and police guard it 24/7 to keep people away. Visitors who sneak in report a suffocating silence, whispering voices, and sudden nausea. It's literally a town so haunted that no one is allowed to visit, so stay away or don't. Times Beach, Missouri, poisoned by its own roads. In the early 1980s, a strange sickness swept through Times Beach, Missouri. Children developed rashes, pets passed away mysteriously, people were collapsing. The cause? Well, the roads. From 1972 to 1976, the city had paid a waste hauler to spray used oil on the roads to keep dust down. That oil contained dioxin, one of the deadliest chemicals known to man. In 1983, the CDC stepped in and ordered a full evacuation. The entire town was bulldozed. Over 2,000 people lost their homes. Now it's a ghostly shell buried under a thick forest, except for the road to nowhere, still cracked and stained with poison. So if you're thinking of visiting, it's highly advised that you don't. Cairo, Illinois, a town choked by hatred. Now, what happens when a town implodes under the weight of its own racism and corruption? You get Cairo, Illinois. Once a thriving port city, Cairo was known for its grand mansions and busy downtown, but during the civil rights era, racist tensions exploded. Assassinations, riots, a years-long boycott that basically gutted the economy. And then came the corruption, police brutality, disappearing funds, fires that just mysteriously consumed buildings. People began to flee. Now today, Cairo looks frozen in time. Storefronts rot behind broken windows. Entire streets sit empty. It's a town haunted not by ghosts, but by the consequences of its own history. Bodie, California, a place where even ghosts got the heck out of there. The Wild West was violent, but Bodie was next level. In the 1880s, it was a booming gold town with over 10,000 residents, but it had a very dark reputation. Slayings were daily events. Saloon brawls turned absolutely lethal. People simply just disappeared. One little girl famously wrote in her diary, "Goodbye, God, I'm going to Bodie." Now, by the 1940s, it was totally abandoned. Locals say anyone who tries to take anything from Bodie, even a rock, is cursed. The Park Service still receives mailed back items with apology letters saying they've suffered accidents, demises, and even bankruptcies. Kennecott, Alaska, frozen in time, literally. Deep in the Alaskan wilderness lies a perfectly preserved town. Homes fully furnished, school books still on desks, clothes hanging in closets, but there's literally not a soul in sight. This is Kennecott, once the richest copper mine in the world. In the 1900s, it was booming, but when the copper dried up, the entire town shut down literally overnight. There were no send-offs, no goodbyes, just silence. Now today, it's only accessible by a very long, dangerous road. Visitors report a heavy atmosphere, like they're being watched by someone or something. And some say they even hear footsteps echoing through the empty mill. Gilman, Colorado, evacuated by the EPA. Gilman sits high in the Rocky Mountains, but don't let the stunning view fool you. What's buried beneath is very toxic. Now founded in the 1800s or 1880s, it thrived on mining silver, zinc, and lead. But in the 1980s, the EPA discovered that, mine waste had contaminated the groundwater with arsenic like sulfuric acid and other poisons. So the entire town was basically condemned and evacuated evacuated. Residents were forced out by 1984. Now, the homes actually still stand, many with furniture and belongings just simply untouched, but it's actually illegal to go inside. The pollution is still that dangerous, and locals say that at night you can actually hear mining carts rattling down tracks that haven't moved in 40 years, so safe to say it's probably haunted. Thurmond, West Virginia, the town the railroad left behind. Thurmond was a railroad boomtown full of life in the early 1900s. It had banks, hotels, even casinos, but it was also built on one thing: coal. When the railway shifted to diesel and the coal industry crashed, the town then shriveled up. By 1950, it was nearly empty. The post office didn't close until 1995, with only 5 residents left. Today, you can walk its tracks and peek into buildings locked in time. It feels like the whole town is just waiting for something or someone to return. Some ghost hunters swear it already has. Rhyolite, Nevada, millionaire's mirage. Now, at its peak, Rhyolite had electricity before New York City. It had concrete sidewalks, an opera house, and even a stock exchange, but it all vanished in just 5 short years. The gold rush here was a mirage. The mine failed, banks collapsed, and people fled in groups, but some say the land was cursed long before settlers arrived. This sacred, land was never meant to be disturbed. Now, today, only the skeletons of buildings remain, including a house made of 50,000 beer bottles. Now, the silence there is overwhelming. Visitors report sudden dizziness, nausea, and an eerie sense that they're being followed. Last on my list for you today, I have Elkmont, Tennessee, where the Smokies swallowed a town. Now, deep inside the Great Smoky Mountains lies the ghost town of Elkmont. Now, once a logging camp, it became a luxurious getaway for the wealthy. Think Victorian cabins, fancy lodges, swing dancing under the stars. But in the 1990s, the National Park Service forced the last residents out and reclaimed the land. We don't know why. Now, the park let nature take over. Vines now crawl through the cabins, porches collapsed under moss, and the strangest part though, some visitors report hearing old-time music at night, swing tunes kind of drifting through the trees, except with nobody around. Jefferson, Texas, in eastern Texas near the Arkansas and Louisiana borders, would-be ghost hunters will run across the town of Jefferson and the haunted Jefferson Hotel. It's been in operation since the late 1800s. This historic hotel and one-time brothel has borne witness to a healthy dose of Texas history. The hotel started recording the guests' encounters with the ghost hauntings, its rooms and corridors, like the vanishing man, who comes and goes and stomps around as he pleases in the hotel's Book of the Deceased. Now, a stay here could have you bumping into all kinds of tormented souls, including Judy, an adult entertainment worker, likely unalived in the hotel, allegedly. She now writes her name in the condensed steam left on mirrors after patrons take a hot shower. This hotel is known as the most haunted hotel in the world. Talk about terrifying, right? Burke, Idaho. Now, Burke is a nearly abandoned mining town that kind of boomed in the latter part of the 19th century, then later went bust. The settlement, wedged into an exceptionally narrow mountain valley, is 300 feet across at its most constricted point. The lack of space forced the railroad to run down the main street and forced builders to get creative when designing buildings able to fit into such a confined space. Now, due to a very violent history plagued by fights and basically dynamite sabotage between mine owners and labor, plus the passings caused by just, avalanches, locals might advise avoiding Burke at night. Of course, if you happen to be looking for a run-in with a ghost or two, nighttime is when the deceased apparently come out to play. Bangor, Maine. Now, one of Bangor's most famous residents, author Stephen King, dwells in a mansion here. Now, that's surely reason enough to include Bangor on my list of creepy towns. Mount Hope Cemetery, where a college-age King used to hang out, is another great reason to go. King is said to have come up with character names and some of his scariest story ideas here. Now, scenes from the 1989 film adaptation of Pet Sematary were even actually filmed at this site. The cemetery, founded in 1836, is one of the first garden cemeteries to ever open in the United States. Mount Hope Cemetery Corp and Crematory has a well-earned reputation for being haunted, with reports of apparitions, shadows, and even children's voices. Mount Hope is full of old, distinctive tombstones that inspired one of America's most famous authors, a writer who has spent his career, creeping out a nation and a planet with his horrifying tales. Seward, Alaska. Seward is home to ruins of one of the most tragic incarnations of the Jesse Lee Home for Children. While other orphanages of the same name have operated in Alaska, this location, abandoned after 1964's Great Alaskan Earthquake, which by the way had a magnitude of 9.2, has an exceptionally unfortunate history. Apparently the ghosts of children who perished during the earthquake still actually haunt the premises today. The pitter-patter of little feet running around, along with the sounds of just skipping rope and giggling tots, are the most common reports coming from those living souls brave enough to actually explore this decaying orphanages. Now, a massive gloomy feeling seems to descend upon all who spend any time here. The Van Gelder Hotel, which is also in Seward, is also rumored to be haunted by a woman who was assassinated in room 202, with some claiming to see her ghost described as a very tall blonde woman in a blue dress. Now this town is just riddled with paranormal activity. Remind me to add it to my bucket list. Deadwood, South Dakota. If you've ever, caught an episode of the HBO series Deadwood, you already know who Sheriff Seth Bullock is. If not, a visit to the Bullock Hotel in Deadwood, South Dakota will acquaint you with him very quickly, as his ghost still spends an awful lot of time there. Bullock and Solstar built the hotel in 1895. Being a sheriff, you might guess, that Seth met a grim kind of bullet-riddled demise, but he actually passed away of cancer in 1919. Bullock turned showers on and off, ensures that the living staff, isn't just kind of lollygagging about, and generally likes to make his presence known to all who venture inside his guest house. Several locations aside from the Bullock Hotel, including the Fairmont Hotel, Franklin Hotel, and Saloon Number 10, are frequently cited as particularly haunted. Now, the town's history as a Wild West boomtown with a violent past, including the assassination of Wild Bill Hillcock, contributes to its eerie reputation. Ghost tours are usually held at their bars, brothels, and gaming halls, so check it out if you're ever there and report back. Bannack, Montana is actually said to be haunted by Sheriff Henry Plummer. Now, Bannack, Montana is a classic gold rush ghost town. It was founded in 1862 and was home to 10,000 people at its height before it was actually abandoned. Now, it was also home to Henry Plummer, whose, biography basically seems tailor-made for ghost stories. Before arriving in Bannack, Plummer was a sheriff of Nevada County, California, where he was known for playing both sides of the law and where he was eventually joined, by kind of a group of bandits. Now, upon arriving in Bannack to prospect for gold, Plummer again convinced the townspeople to elect him sheriff. Details are sketchy about what happened next. Now, at the time, a group of road agents called the Innocents were terrorizing the town, and it's unclear whether Plummer himself was the founder, and leader of the group. Either way, a group of panicked miners eventually formed a posse and kind of unalived several innocent people, as well as the sheriff. However, it is also possible the Innocents fabricated Plummer's involvement in the group to lessen their culpability and unalived him themselves. Grave robbers later decapitated his body, according to local legend. If you ever kind of wander through Bannack, you might see the headless sheriff's ghost. Another terrifying story from the same town, though, is of a young girl named Dorothy Dunn. She tragically actually drowned in a dredge pond. Now, her demise is said to be linked to sightings of a young girl in a blue dress, often seen in the Mead Hotel. Beyond specific stories, there are reports just generally of cold spots, unexplained sounds, and other ghostly phenomena in various locations within Bannack. Definitely sounds like just one big haunted town, am I right? Batsto Village in New Jersey. This town is said to be the stomping grounds of the Jersey Devil. Well, that doesn't sound so good. Now, Batsto is yet another abandoned American settlement, only instead of being home to a ghost, it's home to a legendary cryptid. Now, it was founded in 1766 to support an ironworks that supplied the Continental Army and was inhabited for the next 110 years. Today, the remains of Batsto are part of the 1.1 million acre forest known as the Pine Barrens. That forest is also home to the legendary Jersey Devil, which means tons of unconfirmed, vaguely written reports of people seeing the creature at Batsto Village. Now, according to legend, the Jersey Devil is, the cursed 13th child of a New Jersey woman named Mrs. Leeds, who gave birth to it in 1735, making it almost 300 years old. It's described as a kangaroo-like creature with the face of a horse, the head of a dog, and bat-like wings, horns, and a tail, and feeds on livestock. Numerous accounts suggest that ghosts are frequently observed roaming the grounds, of Batsto Village. Today, Batsto Village is a popular tourist destination with over 40 sites and structures open for visitors, despite its reputation as a haunted location. Grafton, Utah. Grafton is known as a ghost town with a history of paranormal activity, and some believe its cemetery is indeed haunted. Visitors have reported strange noises, voices, ghostly apparitions, and an overall feeling of just otherworldly presence, suggesting the spirits of the original settlers, may linger there. The town cemetery, with over 80 graves, is particularly rumored to be haunted, with reports of infants crying and a woman walking through a lonely graveyard. It's said to also be haunted by a sobbing woman who kind of wanders the cemetery at night. Now, not all ghost towns are former mining settlements. In 1859, 5 Mormon families settled along the Virgin River just outside of what's now Utah's Zion National Park. They called their settlement Wheeler, and when the Civil War began the following year, they focused on planting cotton. But in 1862, a flood wiped out most of Wheeler. Now, it was rebuilt and renamed Grafton, but floods periodically continued, as well as illnesses and raids by Indigenous Americans. Now, only 28 people lived in Grafton in 1864, according to the census. Most abandoned it by 1890, and by 1909, only 3 families actually remained, and by 1945, it was finally deserted for good. It's since been used as a backdrop for Western films like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Now, like many abandoned, frontier towns, Grafton also has had its very good share of ghost sightings. Ghost hunters have heard crying infants and seen a woman walking again through the town cemetery. Calico, California, a Calico ghost town in California, is well known for its paranormal activity and ghost stories, making it a very popular destination for those interested in the supernatural. Now, visitors and locals alike have reported experiencing very strange noises, unexplained chills in their body, and even seeing shadowy figures or spectral apparitions, within the town's buildings and streets. Now, this town is said to be haunted by school children and teachers. Prospectors found silver in the Calico Mountains in 1875, and by the early 1880s, the fledgling town of Calico was home to about 2,500 people. But when the Silver Purchase Act of 1890 lowered silver prices, the town became a ghost of its former self. Residents began moving away, and by 1935, it was deserted completely. Now, according to local legend, Calico is home to a variety of spirits, many of whom inhabit, the ruins of the former schoolhouse. Visitors claim to have seen both teachers and students haunting the building, as well as a mysterious red ball of light. Now, despite these occurrences, in 1950, Knott's Berry farm owner Walter Knott purchased the land on which Calico sat and restored the remains of the town. In 1966, Knott donated Calico to San Bernardino County. Now, the town's history, with its many colorful characters and dramatic events, may contribute to the stories of hauntings. The remote location is isolated, and the town may also, enhance the sense of mystery and paranormal activity.
In at number 5, we have Batsto Village in New Jersey. Located in New Jersey, Batsto Village is a historic community centered around the Batsto Iron Works. The site was ideal for ironwork because there was water for mills, abundant wood for charcoal, and naturally occurring bog iron. The well-preserved and lovingly restored village dates back to 1766. As the operation of ironwork grew, so did the village. There were mills, cottages, and over 3 dozen structures and buildings still remain, many from the early 1800s. But by mid-1800s, iron production declined due to the discovery of coal ore. As the need for iron declined, then glassmaking was pursued by the town, but at that point the population already started to dwindle. When Joseph Wharton purchased the property, he primarily focused on forestry and agricultural endeavors. After Joseph Wharton passed in 1909, the property was managed by a trust. The state of New Jersey began buying the land in the 1950s. The last resident to leave the town left in 1936, but not before strange disappearances occurred. According to local legend and a bunch of conspiracy theorists, Ong's Hat offers a portal to a different dimension. In the 1970s, a few professors from Princeton fled there after being mocked by their quantum physics theories. This is when they claimed to have discovered interdimensional travel. According to other local legends, the devil is the 13th born son of the Leeds, the first inhabitants of New Jersey. Mother Leeds gave birth to a healthy baby, who within minutes transformed into this beast. This old ghost town is said to be a hotspot for the Jersey Devil activity, and in the last 50 years there have been numerous reports and encounters with the beast in this area. Some of these encounters include strange tracks along with hearing screams just outside of the village. One sighting of the Jersey Devil comes from a group that saw the creatures crossing the street in front of them. When visiting the village, some say you can feel his presence as if he's walking right behind you. In at number 4, we have Bodie, California. Located up in the Bodie Hills in Mono County, California, near Yosemite, in 1859, 4 miners found a good place to look for gold in the hills near the California-Nevada border. Bodie died in a blizzard not long after, but a small mining town sprung up at their camp. The town was home to 10,000 people. people. Bodie was a mining camp in 1859 where people had seen gold in its hills. Eventually it turned into a well-populated town, though like most mining towns it saw its peaks, its losses, and then its decline. Fast forward to 1962 and the town would be fully abandoned. Although it already showed signs of decline with dwindling numbers at the start of the 20th century, a series of fires forced the last remaining residents to flee the town, leaving it almost exactly as it was in the early 1900s. With the dinner tables still set, shops are still stocked with supplies, and restaurants are still poised to serve long-forgotten meals. Today, the 110 silent buildings sit spaced out for traffic and people that aren't there. Buildings such as a barbershop, a church, a mill, a morgue, and a leaning hotel are held up by a beam and have been left untouched for 100 years. Though it has been left abandoned for years, some of the buildings are in a crumbling state of decay, while others stand strong, full of their original items but long devoid of their owners. There were also 60 saloons and thus a fair amount of danger. People were robbed and crimes occurred quite often, though the curse of Bodie has nothing to do with the fires or the shootings. It started because people started taking artifacts from abandoned buildings. They'd take weather-worn shoes or pieces of glass from shattered windows. Somebody once ran off with a piano. Those items may seem like they have no value, but all objects carry equal significance in telling the story of Bodie. Thus the curse of Bodie emerged: if you take something from Bodie, bad luck will come around to get you. Because of the rumor spreading of a curse, people who stole items would send them back, often including heartfelt apology letters, explaining that they didn't expect their fish to pass or their romantic life to fail from stealing from Bodie. In at number 3 we have Terlingua in Texas. The town of Terlingua, Texas was once a bustling mining town full of life, wealth, and promise. Today it's a ghost town with abandoned mine shafts, a general store, an old jail, a church, and multiple ghost houses. Terlingua became of interest to local miners in the late 1800s when they discovered cinnabar, a red mercury sulfide. A man by the name of Jack Dawson discovered that mercury could be extracted from the cinnabar, and by 1900 there were 4 mining companies in the area with a population of over 2,000 people. The Chisos Mining Company owned the entire town of Terlingua, and at one point they built a general store, a post office, a hotel, a school, a theatre, and even a telephone service. Though conditions in the mine were tough, with the 7-day work week being the standard, working long days in the desert heat led many miners to lose their lives in the mines. To make matters worse, the Chisos Mining Company even paid their workers in coupons, which could only be spent at the company-owned store. The decline started once the mines dried up. Companies left and the people left with them. One of the scariest parts of the town is the church, which sits on the hill above the ghost town. One quote says, "As we approached the church, the door opened all by itself. Inside the church, visitors report an eerie feeling when entering the church. Moreover, several others report experiencing blackouts, blurred vision, and even hallucinations while exploring the abandoned town." Researchers theorize that this is due to low-frequency sound waves in the area that are able to alter people's perceptions of the things around them, and as well as disorient them. In at number 2 we have Ludlow, Colorado. Located about 12 miles north of Trinidad, Ludlow, Colorado is a ghost town known for an infamous event in 1914. A former mining camp, it was the location of the Ludlow Massacre. Beginning in 1910, the resident coal miners grew unhappy over their dangerous working conditions and began to debate a strike. By 1913, a strike had begun, much to the dismay of owner John B. Rockefeller. On April 20th, 1914, there was a massacre in Ludlow, where the Colorado National Guard and Colorado Fuel and Iron Company guards attacked miners, burning their tents to the ground. Known as the Ludlow Massacre, 25 people lost their lives. The massacre was the height of the Colorado Coalfield War, which began a year earlier in 1913. 2 coal mining counties, Las Animas and Huerfano, were the centers of the conflict. The United Mine Workers of America led the strike against the Colorado Fuel and Iron, owned by Rockefeller. They were upset over the horrible working conditions. Both parties led attacks back and forth over the years. Today, the old company town of Ludlow still stands as a ghost town, and the site of the tent city is also kept reserved, now under the care of the United Mine Workers of America. A monument to the deceased was also built by the Union at the site. In addition, the cellar where so many innocents perished is still in place. The doorway can still be seen and the dark depths of the pit can still be viewed. Though this isn't recommended, as many people who visit the abandoned ghost town report a strange feeling when looking through the doorway, and even worse, possible whispers around them with an unexplainable source. And finally, In at number 1, we have Helltown, Ohio. The abandoned town known as Helltown can be found in the Cuyahoga Valley in Ohio. Thus, it's an eerie, deserted town known by locals to be haunted. No people live in the area anymore, though there are still remnants of the lives of former residents left behind. The whole town is surrounded by hazardous roads that seemingly lead to nowhere. Locals believe this was done to confuse any wandering explorers. But the Helltown church seems to have inspired the town's ominous name. The tiny white church is in the center of Helltown and is central to all local theories. Some say the church was a place of worship for practicing Satanists who still lurk around the closed-off roads, hoping to recruit unwelcome visitors. Others believe the town was evacuated after a chemical spill that resulted in bizarre mutations of the residents and animal population. The legend of the Peninsula Python stems from this theory. There even sits an abandoned school bus in the town with legends of its own. The story goes that the bus was carrying a group of high school students who were going to one of the ski resorts near Boston when an elderly woman flagged down the bus. She was in a panicked state and explained that there was a young boy in her house who was seriously hurt. The bus driver, in an attempt to help, turned down her driveway and drove into the woods hoping to help the boy. When the bus approached the house, Satan worshippers swarmed it and sacrificed all those on board. The bus sat back there for over 30 years, standing as a warning to all who decide to venture into Helltown. A local paranormal investigator set out to research the abandoned town, and to his surprise, what he discovered was truly frightening. He describes Helltown as not just truly abandoned, but is home to many spirits and hauntings. His personal experience with a ghost encounter was returning to his car to find strange people looking into his car windows. Both times the people vanished as soon as they saw him approaching the car before he had a chance to speak to them.